Welcome to the Welborne podcast. We're inviting you to join us on a journey 17 years in the making, which will eventually culminate in the creation of a unique place here in Hampshire. Driven by the vision and passion of a local landowner to create a new, thriving community here just north of Fareham, where alongside 6,000 beautifully designed new homes, the region will be enhanced with accessible green spaces, schools, shops, a technology park, and much, much more. And as part of this podcast series, I'm delighted to spend time with some of the talented individuals behind bringing the project into reality as visionaries, creatives, and engineers who have combined for a truly unique and one-of-a-kind development. And today in the studio, I have with me the man responsible for ensuring the right infrastructure is there from the start. It's a big responsibility, Paul Stewart, but it's great to have you here to discuss it in more detail today.
It is. Thank you, James. Nice to be here.
And first up, really, we want to get to know you as an individual and tell us about your journey into engineering. So you've ended up sitting in front of me here today.
Yeah, that's quite a difficult one. For anyone listening wanting to go into engineering, start off with some good A levels. Maths, physics, chemistry is where I started, and then university. So a civil engineering degree at Loughborough University, and then you kind of think, where do you go from here? My journey started in the 90s. There was a bit of a recession going on, and I managed to find some jobs in local authority, which actually has proved quite a good background, because you get an understanding when you deal with local authorities what they're up against and what their challenges are. And then I progressed into the private sector. So I worked for some consultants in London after leaving Barking and Dagenham Council, and ended up at a company called Mayor Brown, where I met John Beresford. And I was the designer on some large residential schemes, one in Waterlooville and one up in Aldershot that John's firm were working on. And we worked well as a team together. And then when John left to work with Buckland, short time afterwards, the position came up with Buckland for technical director. And that's why I've ended up where I am today, working on this development and basically the other side of the fence. So I'm in control of the designs for the client, determining what needs doing, how it needs doing, and getting the right people in place to do it.
It's a real pleasure to have you as part of the Welborne project here, Paul. But I know we mentioned off camera as well that perhaps engineering wasn't an absolute goal and really your passion was in problem solving. So tell me how that applies for your working world.
Yeah, I think generally if you end up being an engineer or a good engineer, you are a problem solver. It's where you end up, and I think there's other careers, probably armed forces and things of that nature, where you end up solving problems that present themselves. So I think certainly it's more of a character trait, and it's where I am today, really. There's a lot of problems involved. Nothing ever goes smoothly. No plan survives contact, and there's a lot of planning involved, and then you have to pivot when problems arrive and solve them.
With a project of the magnitude of Welborne, tell us about some of the hurdles you have to overcome. And for people that are listening or watching, what actually needs to come to site?
Well, these are the things that you think about your everyday life. You turn on a tap and there's water. You flush a toilet. Where does it go? Electricity. Your internet. All these things need to come into the site. And there's massive upstream works that have to go on to deliver those to your houses. There's the amount of space taken up under the roads and the footpaths. They all need to be planned and coordinated. And the roads themselves, so just bringing the roads in and all the off-site improvements required. There's a massive journey involved in actually getting to build a house and someone moving into it.
And tell me how your role applies as a cog within the Welborne team, because of course there's a landscape architect, there's a town architect, we've got the ecologists that are involved in the project as well. Where do you fit in with that, and how did the team come together?
Yeah, so Buckland Development is, as a client, we have a technical side. So there's myself, and I have two technical colleagues. We have Peter Mason and we have Paul Self, who deals with the commercial side of things. And we're more kind of involved in the delivery. So I'm based down here on site, a few days a week, as is Peter and Paul, and we sit with the designers, and we work closely with Blanchard Wells in the delivery of the groundworks, and Volker Fitzpatrick, who are doing the design and build on the motorway junction, and Hampshire County Council, and they all have staff based down here at Dean Farm on Welborne.
And so you're kind of like a middle cog almost between the guys that are actually doing the works and then, as you said, the design team.
Yeah, precisely. And then also, the other side of that cog is the kind of executive management. So you've got Mark and John, and the people with the strategic vision, like Kim Wilkie and Ben Pentreath. So we bring those visions and we communicate those to the people that have to design them and deliver them.
And from an infrastructure perspective, the Welborne project, there's going to be some inevitable short-term pain for the long-term gain that will come with the project. And key in getting the buy-in from the wider community is the community liaison role that takes place, that Fiona Gray is a part of.
Yes.
How does that play into your working world as well?
No, it's very important, and it's something which we need to we do carry in the forefront of our mind, and we need to try and impress on everyone that's on the site that everything they do has an impact on the local community. Anything from putting traffic cones and traffic lights out on the road, to cutting trees and closing footpaths and things of that nature. We have to keep the residents informed at all times of what's going on, and try and mitigate any inconvenience of that.
And I guess one of the biggest challenges initially that will be felt is the road infrastructure and the changes that are happening there. There's been upgrades in and around Junction 10 of the M27. Tell us about why they were required, and in fact also what it's going to enable to improve the region as well.
Yeah, so obviously, national highways have just been through and done the smart motorways works on the M27. We need to come in again shortly to... Basically, in the 70s, when they built the motorway, they didn't seem to finish off Junction 10. There's only 2 slip roads rather than 4 that it needs to work in all directions. So we're going to reconfigure Junction 10 to provide those additional slip roads so you can get on and off towards the west and make it an all-moves junction, which saves people having to go all the way up to Junction 11, do a U-turn and come back. And the importance of Junction 10 is really central to why Welborne is where it is. So in Fareham needing to deliver their 6,000 houses, they've taken the decision to put them in a location where it's well served by the motorway, to reduce the impact on the local road network.
When we were talking off camera earlier, actually, you made a really good point on this, that by putting 6,000 residential houses, and then there's also bigger infrastructure projects there, such as schools and this science and technology park, by putting it in one place, you can actually make all of the correct road changes that need to happen. Whereas if they're sporadically around the region, that same kind of investment isn't going to happen, is it?
Exactly. We've got the investment to come in. We can plan for it. We've got an open field, so we can plan the internal movements on the new development. Whereas if you're dotting these things and putting them around Fareham in a kind of haphazard manner, you're having to deal with the local infrastructure that's already there, and there's not a lot of space for improvement. So I think, whilst I think there is going to be an impact on the road network, this is probably the least damaging way of doing it and the least inconvenient for the local residents. And
also upgrades are not just for cars, there's going to be cycle paths and walkways as well, I understand. More than 20 intricacies, details that have been considered, is that right?
Absolutely. So in terms of the schemes, we've been planning this for quite a long time, and there's been an awful lot of discussion with Hampshire County Council as the highway authority. So we're looking at highway safety improvement schemes due to the increased traffic that Welborne will cause. We've got cycle schemes to give a sustainable mode of travel down to Fareham and into Wickham and other places. We have a 10-minute bus service coming in, which will give a super rapid service to Fareham bus station and train station to try and reduce the reliance on cars for people going to Fareham and the wider South Hampshire area. And yeah, so there's an awful lot of work gone into it. It's not just Welborne itself and the immediate A32.
And from what you're saying, I get a real sense that this isn't just about the people of Welborne being able to get in and out of their area. It's also the invitation for people in the wider community to join and enter Welborne. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So part of Welborne is 1 million square feet of employment. There's going to be jobs generated. People are going to be coming in to work on the site. There will be a limited amount of other uses which people are going to be wanting to use. We're going to have, whilst Welborne is generally designed to wash its own face, we are providing facilities for the local people as well.
It's really great to hear. Again, we've talked on many of the other episodes of this series about the legacy that Welborne's going to have, and it's going to reverberate across the region positively, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. No, I think that's one of the. I mean, we can discuss the unique factors of Welborne, but that is unique. I mean, no other development that I have worked on has been done with this single vision. It is for want of a better word, a legacy project, and it's something which Mark and his family are looking to be proud of.
Yeah, and we have no doubt and hope as well that it will be a thriving community and a hub for this region. So, Paul, I just want to move it on now to talk about the sustainability considerations that have been made as part of the Welborne project. How have we done that?
I mean, as I said, this development's been a few years in the planning. So even just going back, probably about 10 years ago, Mark had in his mind that Welborne was coming along, and he developed a solar farm on the Southwark estate land.
This is a great example of the longevity and idea of this project as well, isn't it?
Precisely that, yes. So that's a 50 megawatt installation. So at the time, it was the largest in the country. I think there's large ones now, but certainly at the time, it was a very large one. Coming on to Welborne itself, electrification is key. We want to electrify the heat, in particular, because the use of gas is quite high in emitting carbon. We're looking at more sustainable materials on the site, and materials that are durable, that are going to last. So, solid materials, slate, brick, and lower carbon road materials, particularly materials that don't require heat necessarily to form them.
And talking from a sustainability perspective as well, there's a real innovative infrastructure with regards to heating the project as well. Tell us a little bit about that. Of course, water source heat pumps for the residential properties and also the bigger ones as well. But what is happening, this innovation and groundbreaking idea?
Yeah, so again, the modern developments now are starting to transition a little bit over to heat pumps. The government has been making noises for a while now that they're going to ban gas boilers, and whilst that has been pushed back, it's still the direction of travel. So I think heat pumps are going to become more and more prevalent in our homes. Typically, those are air source heat pumps, and whilst they're obviously a lot better than gas boilers, they reduce the amount of carbon that we emit to the atmosphere. The problem is they don't work particularly well when it's very cold. So the overall coefficient of performance, and sorry to get a little bit technical, you put roughly about 1 unit of electricity in, and you get 2.5 units of heat out of it over the year when you're doing your hot water and your heating. So we're looking at a slightly different form. It's the same technology, but instead of putting air through the heat pump, we're going to use water. And the source of water is that's the kind of unique bit about Welborne.
It's existing already in the region, so it's like we're becoming part of the system that's already there.
Yeah, so the technology isn't new. You can have water source heat pumps already, but the new bit is that Portsmouth Water have got a large reservoir near the site, and the source of that is groundwater, largely, which is about 10 degrees centigrade. So it's relatively warm. It doesn't sound warm, but it's relatively warm in heat terms. So we pipe that around our site and into every house, and they extract a little bit of that heat. I think 2 degrees. So we're not going to, no one's going to get chilly water coming out of their taps. And that's enough because of the volume. There's 40 million litres of water coming through that every day. And because of that volume, it enables us to heat the homes of Welborne. And the coefficient of performance again, rather than say 2.5 for an air source heat pump, is closer to 4.5 when we're talking about heating and hot water.
So the role of the bodies of water at Welborne, it isn't just an aesthetic one, there's also a practicality element of it, and it aids us in the sustainability model that we want to follow.
Yes, I mean obviously there are water bodies on Welborne in terms of the drainage, and we'll perhaps touch on that briefly. So in terms of the surface water drainage, obviously people are concerned about paving areas and roofs and green fields and having a lot of runoff and flooding and all the rest of it. So what we're doing at Welborne is we are building some ponds and features on the site where the water will go and attenuate. So it'll stay on site, it won't go off and flood anybody, and then it'll soak gradually into the ground. We've got some large soakaways and tanks going in as well. The reservoir for the heat pump is actually it's an underground reservoir up just to the northeast of the site, run by Portsmouth Water.
Okay, and also that source is used as a cooling element for the system as well, I believe.
Yeah, so again, whilst possibly not unique in terms of cooling, one of the things we do see with climate change is that we do tend to get some much hotter days in the summer, and you could get a few weeks of really hot weather. Air conditioning is starting to go into homes in the UK now. The problem with air conditioning is it requires electricity. The big benefit of our system is because the water's at 10 degrees centigrade, it's pretty much chilled. So we can put that through our heat emitters, which have become cool emitters when we put cold water through them. And it'll provide chilling of the rooms without actually needing to use electricity.
So just to clarify then, the water pump systems not only heat your home, they also add to cooling it as well. So an extra element on a gas boiler.
It's very difficult to cool a house with a gas boiler.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Also, particularly the works here on site are going to be powered by substations. Can you tell us how they're going to blend in with surroundings across the next 20 to 30 years in a sense of we don't want eyesores there, do we?
No, absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of the substations, we've got the off-site substations. There's one existing, actually, which is North Fareham substation to the south, and that's going to be our first electricity. And we'll have 4 megawatts from that one. And then we do need to build a new one off-site, which is going up to the northeast of the site. And that one's going to be 35 megawatts. So that's the one that we have to build from scratch. What we're doing, so you won't see it, pretty much is it's going in a field behind a hedge, so you won't see it from the A32. It's going just to the north of an industrial area. It can't be seen from any residential houses. And it's set down in the landscape. It's going to be cut into a slope. And the finishes are going to be, it's going to represent an agricultural building. So if you do drive past the lane that goes right past it, you'll see a building that looks very much like a farm building.
We do hope that people will be keeping their eyes on the road, though, rather than the horizon, right?
We do hope so, yeah.
I also understand that it's going to be channeled via underground pylons. Is that right?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got some 132 kilovolt power lines, so it's the metal tower types going across the site. Clearly, they're a little bit in the way, so we're going to underground those. So we're underground those, and we're routing those so they pass right by the new primary substation.
If we look at the size of the Welborne project, it's significant. We're talking 6,000 homes, science technology park, nurseries, schools, retirement homes, etc. Is there any particular considerations with regards to the size of the power required and what capability do we actually have on site?
Yeah, I mean, particularly, and this is one of the big issues that a lot of developments have got at the moment, is that there is constraints in our power system. We are seeing uptake of electrification widely, with electric cars and electric heating. One of the things that we have done quite early is engage with the local distributor, SSE is our local power company, and we've basically reserved capacity for the site. And if you take a standard house which is gas heated at the moment, you might expect, if you've got 6,000 of those, the average of those would be about, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 kilowatts as a peak demand. We're talking double that, so probably about 4 kilowatts for our houses, because we've got heat pumps, because we've got cars, which most of which are going to be electrified over the next few years.
And we're a society that is becoming more and more reliant on continuous energy anyway, aren't
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've bagged a total of 39 megawatts of electricity, which we discussed off camera how many houses that was, and I can't quite remember.
30,000. So
that
the
was,
capabilities to power 30,000 houses. So that's more than enough, I think. And also thinking longevity wise, it will see us into the future as well. And of course, this Welborne project is 20, 30 years in the making. So I'm sure that capacity can also be increased across that time.
Yeah, exactly. That's 30,000 gas-heated homes, so of existing type. So that shows you the difference. We need a lot more electricity for this development than a modern one would 10 years ago, say.
The demand of energy and power also comes into play when we think about the way that we're going to transport ourselves around now, in the future, and the transition we find ourselves. What considerations have been made on site for that when we think about electric cars currently, but then what could come after that, perhaps?
Well, exactly that. I mean, I think obviously in the near future we're talking about electrification. So we are looking to put electric chargers in all the homes. Potentially we could look at a charging hub on the M27. And going beyond that, we don't know really. I mean, there's a lot of talk of hydrogen. I've seen research on ammonia in cars. We are really looking to keep up with the future, and that's the thing. We're not just here in the short term. This is a 20 to 25 year project, and things will change over that time, and we will put in new infrastructure as it's required.
Big one now, because it is so fundamental to everyone's life. The fibre network that's going to exist in the ground. What are the capabilities of that? What are we doing to ensure that everyone will always be online at Welborne, come rain nor shine?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big thing for us. And we are doing something slightly different on Welborne. So rather than putting in a network with open reach, we're putting our own network in. We're working with some industry standard companies that work for major house builders and the MOD and other organisations, and we're putting in a brand new fibre system. We'll have our own backhaul to the spine of the national network of fibres, and every home will have fibre from day one. They'll have a router in. You'll walk into your house, you'll scan a QR code, and you'll log in. And you'll be on the fibre. The fibre speeds at the moment we're planning go up to 1,000 megabits per second, so a gig. And the technology we're putting in currently would be capable for 10. So if we wanted to future-proof that and offer customers more than a gig, we could do that. We are currently branding it, as a kind of a Welborne fibre. So that there won't be direct competition on site, but the prices will be competitive.
But there will be the potential in the future for there to be a competition on site.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things that we're doing is rather than a single fibre into every home, there's going to be 4 fibres. So we have the opportunity to invite other operators in and sell those fibres to them to provide a competition in that market.
So just to clarify, Paul, for those watching and listening, from day one when they move in as either a resident or a tenant, they will have the capability of 1 gigabit to utilise in their property, but the forward thinking and planning that we've done, they could have the potential for up to 10 gigabits.
Yeah, that's correct, James. Yeah, we're future-proofing it for 10 gigabit.
This is absolutely fantastic to hear all of the forward planning that's being done as part of the Welborne project. And as you look at it for yourself, Paul, is it a future blueprint you think could be used elsewhere, and how does it compare to other projects that you've worked on?
It is different, and I think clearly the vision, there's a really strong vision from Mark and John particularly as to what they want. And the central thing of trees in every street, landscape verges, which will have an impact not just on how the place feels as you're walking down the street. In the summer it'll be cooler. You've got trees in the streets.
Yeah.
And that has been a challenge to deliver in terms of highways. we have had to produce our own streets manual, for instance, which things like how far we can have a street lighting column from a tree. If we were to follow the current guidance, it'd be very difficult to put the number of trees in that we are doing, and the feel of the place would be very different. So I think it has had its technical challenges, and it will be different from other developments, and positive. I mean, really comparing this to when I walk around other developments that I've worked on before, it is going to feel very different.
Paul Stewart, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you here in the studio, hearing your involvement in the Welborne project. And I'm sure anybody that visits the site during all phases in the next 20 to 30 years will feel the attention to detail and consideration that has taken place. So thank you for spending some time with us.
It's been a pleasure, James. Thank you.
And for those of you tuning in out there or listening, don't forget that you can stay regularly updated, courtesy of the website, by heading over to www.welborne.co.uk, as well as regular postings across the social networks on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram by following us at Welborne UK. Thank you and goodbye.